morning, or whatever time of day it is. It's morning here. It might look a little dark in here. It's overcast. Normally, there's a lot of natural light coming through here. Um, my name is John Moore, and I am a shamanic practitioner and teacher. I live in the state of Maine, and today I want to talk to you about spiritual egotism, spiritual bypass, wounding, and triggers, and getting triggered. I'm talking about getting triggered. And I am going to be completely personal and vulnerable with you and talk about my own ego, my own triggers, or at least one of them. There's too many to talk about in one video. And what that means. And one of the reasons I like to do that is that as a spiritual teacher, I think it is often a mistake that spiritual teachers make when they try to come across as better than their students, or more evolved or ascended, or somehow not human. I'm a human being, at least I identify as such. I might be a bear, but that's another story for another day. But I'm a human being, and I have the same stuff that everybody else does. I just work on my stuff using spiritual techniques, and I work with people on spiritual development, and I do, and I'll tell you one of the things that I've learned along the way, and that hopefully will be helpful to you. I am not above doing my own work. I think there's a problem when people think they're done doing their work. I view my personal inner work as a lifelong journey, probably more than one lifetime, but at least to the end of this life, I'll be working on my stuff. So something happened, an incident happened. It's not an incident, but something happened the other day that I found myself being really triggered by, and so I wanted to talk about it here, and I wanted to talk about what that means, and I want to talk about what getting triggered means. We all have triggers, all of us. Some of us are better than others at handling them. But the nature of triggers is, and if you don't know what triggering is, or triggers, there's lots of popular memes making fun of people being triggered and stuff. What it just means is that we have an almost instantaneous, disproportionate emotional reaction to something, right? In other words, disproportionate. Somebody says something to me, and I fly into a rage, right? And that rage is disproportionate because even though that person might have said something harmful or offensive or whatever, the rage that I feel might be disproportionate for the situation. What it means is that they have hit something within me. They have hit some wound or some ego structure within me that I have not healed or addressed yet. And in that light, triggers are actually powerful tools that point to the areas where we need to do some self-work. So when this thing happened the other day, and I found myself being indignant, how dare this person? I mean, I wasn't saying that. Isn't it funny when I'm trying to imitate myself speaking? That's a weird thing. But there's a little bit of screw you energy with that. And what that just means is there's an area of work for me to do. And, when you have been doing your work and you get to a certain level, and there's not levels like level 1, level 2, but you get to a certain area of development where you are able to do some self-reflection. The people that trigger you, you can actually wind up being thankful for them. So I'm going to be thankful that this person did something that triggered me. And it wasn't their intention to trigger me, but that was a gift, because now I've got something juicy to work on. some part of me that, oh, there's going to be a big impact when I figure out what this is and I work on it and I work to heal it and that sort of thing. So I'll tell you what happened. So, besides this YouTube channel, I have all kinds of ways that I communicate and teach and talk about shamanism. I teach classes through Learn It Live. I have my own shamanic community at shamancommunity.com if you're interested. I have an app. I have a podcast. I don't know. I've got everything. I've got a blog. I just started a Substack, which haven't done much on yet, but I just really love talking and writing and producing content about shamanism and spiritual topics, and so I do that. And so I have a podcast, and I've done something around 50 episodes over the past year and a half or so. Sort of irregular. Do one every couple weeks or once a month or whenever I can, or I have a nice guest that I want to talk to or whatever. So apparently I had done a podcast some time ago, and I had in it expressed my opinion that I am pro, and this is going to set some people off, and if this sets you off, you're welcome. I'm pro-vaccine for COVID. I am fully vaccinated and boosted, and I think for most people it's the right thing to do. That's my opinion. Okay, you are entitled to your opinion. I am not trying to take your opinion away. I am not trying to take your free will away. Never will I try to do that. I'm not saying you should be thrown in jail if you don't get vaccinated or something along those lines. But I feel like it's, for most people, it's the right thing to do to protect not just themselves, but the people around them. I have people I love who are immune compromised. I have, but even then, you never know if you're going to be a carrier with no symptoms and pass it to somebody who's going to pass it to somebody who's immune compromised, right? And so it's just my feeling that's when I examine the reality of it is an ethical thing to do. And you can feel free to disagree, and that's totally fine. Don't really want to get into that here, but I stated that opinion in one of my podcasts. And somebody who is very anti-vaccine contacted me, and I'm totally fine with disagreement. She could have said, I just feel like, she had her opinion. I feel like you're wrong. But that wasn't how she expressed her opinion. How she expressed her opinion was, she called me egotistical. She said I was abusing my ability, she was abusing my position, whatever. I don't have a position of power. I don't have a position of power over anyone. I'm providing information. I guess information is power, but to influence people. And that's wrong, and how dare I, and blah, blah, blah. And then she said, I look forward to you re-recording this podcast. And I think that's the thing that set me off. It wasn't so much the personal attack or the fact that, she really mischaracterized what I said, and she tried to use terms that I had used, like spiritual egotism, to attack me when she didn't understand the definition of those things that I had given, and which is fine. It's totally fine, and that wasn't the part that triggered me. What wound up triggering me was the presumptiveness, was the, I look forward to you re-recording your podcast, because I'm going to you start off by insulting me and say my opinion's wrong, and that you assume that I am going to go back and, first of all, change my opinion. I got to tell you, insulting people is not a really great way to get them to change their opinion. But the presumptiveness, you're going to do this, that's the thing that set me off, and that really brought up some emotion in me. So I'm going to be thankful for this person for doing that, because clearly that is a pointer, that's a breadcrumb to some wounding inside of me. And I don't know what that is yet. I haven't done the work, but I'm going to do the work. I am doing the work. I'm going to figure out what that is. I'm going to do shamanic journeying about it. I'm going to heal that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We got to work on it. Um, you know, and not just so it isn't a trigger anymore, which is, that is a delight. That is a delightful thing. But because it's important to my spiritual development in general, because there's something underneath here that who knows what effect it's having. So ego, and I'm not one of these teachers who thinks that ego is absolutely evil. I think that's a mischaracterization. I think ego can present some problems. Ego is our sense of a separate identity. And we have it for a reason. We have it even though underneath it all, we are all connected. And that's another thing to recognize. That's another thing that is pretty helpful for me, is that I recognize that I'm connected to this person, even though they're some random person who just emailed me from, wherever they are in the world. My ego says that this is a separate person. Okay. And in a way, is a little bit insidious and a little bit misleading, because underneath it all, we are connected. So my experience of this person is a part of me, this internal experience. So there's some work to do on my ego. I have an ego. I'm not, I'm not one of these spiritual teachers that has to float on a cloud of unicorn farts, right? Like, that's not my thing. I do my best to be human and down to earth and really, really just honest about everything. But I have an ego, and I get triggered from time to time. I'm better than, when I look at my life, and all the mistakes I've made in my life, and all of the people I've hurt, and all of the things the times I have been triggered over really minor things, I can see the progression of my own self-work. But I'm not done, and I doubt I will be for the rest of this lifetime. I'm 50 years old. I hope that I've got another 50 years or so. Medical science is doing wonderful things, and my grandmother is about to turn 106, so she's still around, and I have some really good genetics as far as that goes. All of my grandparents lived into their 90s, and my great grandparents were around when I was a kid and lived into their 90s, and so fingers crossed, I've got another 50 years to work on this stuff while I'm in this physical form. And that's really the gist of it, is that we're all here to do our work. So spiritual egotism, this is the thing that this person brought up from my podcast, and was trying to throw in my face and say, well, you're just, you're a spiritual egotist. Maybe I've got an ego and I've got egotism, because we all have some degree of that. But spiritual egotism, just to describe it so you know what the difference is, this is when people do feel like they're floating on a cloud of unicorn farts. When people say, I have no more work to do. I have ascended. I am now a master. I am fully enlightened, unless they are. And I haven't, have met an individual back in the 90s who is considered by many to be enlightened, and he wound up committing suicide. So clearly there was still something there. He had amazing spiritual abilities. I witnessed him do things that, if I described, somebody might think I was psychotic, but I wasn't alone. I was with, 100 other people. Regardless, uh, he might have, I don't know because I didn't know him that personally, but he might have been experiencing spiritual egotism. And here's the danger. Like, he might have thought, well, I'm enlightened, so I'm done. I have all these spiritual abilities, so I don't need to do self-work anymore. But there's a real problem there, because clearly he had stopped doing the inner work and ignored a part of him that wanted to end his life. And it's sad. It's very sad. And other teachers wind up abusing their students, or drinking themselves to death, or wind up in other types of trouble, because while they become highly spiritually developed, they haven't done the self work. They haven't done the shadow cleanup. And triggers, in general, are pointers to things in our shadow. It kind of feels like I'm jumping around topics, but this is all related, and I've done videos on the shadow, and I teach about the shadow and all kinds of stuff. So our triggers come up out of our shadow, and our shadow are parts of ourselves that we have exiled because they are painful to look at, socially unacceptable. We were told they're bad. We want to hide them. And this can be anything. This doesn't just mean like Jekyll and Hyde stuff. Like, I want to, internally, I want to murder people. This can be really protective stuff. And generally it is. The shadow, again, the parts of you that are in your shadow, they aren't evil. They might act up in ways that seem evil, or they might act up in ways that we would not want them to, like being triggered. I don't want to be triggered. I don't want to have this disproportionate emotional reaction. I would like to be able to sit back when somebody says, oh, that's really interesting that this person took that perspective on something that I said. And there's something inside of them that's making them take that perspective on something that they said, and just not take it and react to it. But when we're triggered, it's usually a surprise. And it's a surprise because it's coming from a part of ourselves that we have hidden away. And a big part of our development that many people miss, because they're out there, they're chasing the light, which is fantastic, right? Go to the light, become a light being, reach your soul, explore the spiritual cosmos, all of this stuff. But don't ignore the stuff that's in here. And Carl Jung said, we don't become enlightened by, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact quote, but we don't become enlightened by going into the light. We become enlightened by pulling stuff up out of the darkness, or shining a light into our darkness. He's talking about our shadow. We become enlightened by addressing these parts of ourselves that we have built and hidden away. And when we do that, we grow as people. We grow on all dimensions. We grow physically, mentally, spiritually. And so I am going to be grateful. You can tell, if you haven't been, if you're not particularly empathic or haven't been paying attention, you can tell that when I talk about what this person said to me, like, there's still emotional energy coming up for me. I'm not detached from it, and if I thought I was, that would be spiritual bypassing, spiritual egotism, saying I'm above that now. Well, it's still triggering me to think about it. So, but I am going to do my best to be grateful to this person for pointing out a part of me that I need to work on, and I'm going to go work on it. So wish me luck anyway. But I hope this has been helpful. I hope this steers you in the right direction with your triggers. Now, I will give you a practical tip here. This is something that was very useful to me that a teacher gave me years ago. She had us keep a journal for a month of every time we got triggered. So it was a trigger journal, and every time you get triggered, you write it down. So you write down, the date and time and what happened and how you reacted to it. And after a month, you go back and you examine that and you go, wow, here's a pattern. There are patterns in these triggers. What is this about? Right? So if I had to guess, I don't know, but I'm going to do the work. If I had to guess, somebody being presumptuous with me, triggering me, is about somebody trying to take away my choice, trying to take away, just assuming that I'm going to do whatever it is they tell, almost like giving me an order. Like it's about personal freedom, it's about autonomy, it's about sovereignty. And so it probably has to do with that. Now, I will analyze this in context with other things. I will do a whole lot of inner work. Will journey, I'll work with my helping spirits, all the great tools that I have from my shamanic training. I'm going to put them to use. And, I'm not going to say that this is going to be easy or I'll instantaneously be able to turn a light switch and that part of me will be healed. But again, it's work, and those are breadcrumbs. Those triggers are breadcrumbs that are pointing the way to something that needs to be healed. So try it. Keep a trigger journal for a month and write down the date, time, what happened, and how you reacted to it. And then after a month, go back and analyze it. Look for common patterns. Know thyself. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will talk to you real soon.